welcome everybody to an episode of Your Distant Neighbor. I'm Jeff Buettner, and the point of the show is to bring on interesting people throughout the valley doing interesting things, and excited to get a little bit of a financial perspective from Shanna. Welcome, Shanna.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so you're from Heritage Financial, correct? Tell me a little bit about what you do, what your background is, and how you got into the wonderful business of financial advising.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. So Heritage Financial Strategies is a independent financial advisory and investment management firm located in Gilbert, but we service the entire valley and actually 16 states as well. So we have a cross-border reach, but we really focus on making sure that people understand what they've got going on and feel comfortable that they're going to be able to hit their goals moving forward. And it's a real big nut to crack for a lot of people. I would say that a lot of people are scared of my world, and I was too, actually. That's sort of how I got into financial advising. A lot of us in the industry didn't really go to college to be financial advisors, although more and more today are. But I started my sort of path when I was 19, and I have great parents. I came from the Midwest. Mom and Dad now have followed me to Mesa, so they live in the East Valley as well. That seems to happen when you leave the cold of the North and the Midwest. But Mom and Dad now live here, and I had a great example in watching them with their work ethic and their integrity, and I just couldn't be happier about that. But what I watched with my mom and dad was them work at jobs that they didn't love or didn't have really a passion for, but that provided good retirement benefits.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Because that's really all they knew. Their parents were Depression era. And so when you said the word investing or stock market to them, they kind of freaked out.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
And their advice was don't do it. Right? So they worked at jobs where they didn't love what they did or didn't really have a passion for it, but that had great retirement benefits. And I'm grateful for that today. But I watched that and I kind of thought, I don't really want to be in that situation. Yeah. I don't want to have to work for the same company or do something that I don't want to do for 35 years just to have that pension.
It's kind of the golden handcuffs, right? Yeah. That they had on that whole generation was like it is a benefit, right? I mean, they promote it as a benefit. And for a lot of people, it was considered a benefit. But like you said, a lot of people stuck with jobs that they weren't happy about. Yeah. Because of those golden handcuffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And, those benefits are disappearing today. More and more companies are doing away with their pensions. But so I didn't really know what the alternative was, though. I was in college to teach music. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a secondary music ed instructor.
I love it. We'll have to talk about that a little bit.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, for sure. Because it was soon after I started college that I realized that meant actually having to teach middle schoolers. So I said no to that pretty quickly, but I didn't really know what the alternative was. So this was, of course, a long time ago. I'll give away my age here. This was like 23 years ago. And before Al Gore invented the internet, of course. So I opened the phone book and looked up and found a financial advisor and made an appointment and went in and met with him. And it was kind of a surreal experience. Beautiful office, walnut and marble and all the awards behind him on the desk. And he kind of looked at me funny because here I am, a 19-year-old college kid wearing shorts and a T-shirt. And I said, I really want to learn about investments. I didn't know where else to go. And I was honest with him. I said, listen, I'm working 3 jobs to put myself through college and sometimes 5. And, I really don't have any money. I don't have 2 nickels to rub together right now, but someday I will. Right. And I want you to teach me about stocks and bonds and mutual funds and all that stuff because I knew my parents couldn't do it. And I think he saw the commission dollars flying out of his sights because he sat his pen down and reached across the desk and patted me on the head and said, don't worry, sweetheart, someday your husband will take care of this for you. Right? And so I was like, sort of at that moment I had a choice to make. I could either say, okay, and resign myself to that being the reality, or I could take it upon myself to teach myself how to do all this stuff. And of course I chose plan B. and started reading and listening to radio programs and just immersed myself in that world. And I changed my major from music to business pretty quickly. I didn't really know what I was going to do with it.
Right.
I didn't know what that meant, but that started my sort of career path. And out of college, I worked at a bank, and then I sold real estate, and then I was a mortgage banker. And all of those were kind of like the opposite of what I really wanted to do, because I was getting people into debt. And, I never really felt that was my true calling. And it really wasn't until a number of years ago when I started my career as a financial advisor that I went, okay, this is what I was meant to do.
Yeah.
So that's where I've been ever since. And I absolutely love it. And my focus, because of my background in wanting to be a teacher, is really in educating my clients and making sure that they make an educated decision and that we work together in the process.
Yeah, and maybe we could talk a little bit about, what does the day-to-day look like for a financial advisor? We hear that name, that term floating around, and like you said, some people just don't, they think it's the only place to turn, but at the same time, it's like, are you actually telling people, hey, this is the best strategy for you? Is it more of an education base? Kind of what do those look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think there is a normal day in what I do, but I do tend to focus on a couple of things, and education is a really, really big piece of it. I firmly believe that nobody should ever invest in anything that they don't at least at a very basic level understand. And oftentimes I have people come into my office with a file box full of unopened statements that they're afraid to open.
Okay.
Yeah. That happens so more often than you would imagine. And most of the time it's because they sat down with somebody who pulled out a lot of slick charts and graphs and made everything look good and told them what to do, and they did it, and now they're second guessing themselves, or they don't really understand any of it anyway. So what's the point in opening up the statement?
So other people had basically said, hey, your best bet is to invest in X, Y, and Z, or do A, B, C, and you'll be fine.
Yep.
But they didn't understand what they were actually doing. Is that the case? Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And so my first order of business in that case is to open everything up and really analyze it. And if they made a good decision, I'll tell them that.
Yeah.
And explain why, and show them, the details around it in terms that they can understand. I'm not going to pull out a slick graph or a PowerPoint. I'm going to draw a picture or use a prop or something like that helps people understand what they're dealing with. And if they didn't make a good decision or there's a better option, then I'll explain that as well. And we don't move forward with any type of financial plan until they're comfortable and confident that it's the right thing for them to do.
Great. So in maybe you can talk on a little bit too, is financial planning like on a very basic level, setting a budget and that kind of stuff?
Yep.
Or is it, hey, this is what you should do with your 401k. This is what a mutual fund is, and this is what I recommend. Or is it the whole gambit?
It can be. My highest and best use is sort of starting with the medium and long-term goals for a client. So I can help with the budget, but I have phenomenal partners like Fiscal Fitness Phoenix, Kelsa Dickey. She is the type of person that will sit down with somebody who has no idea what a budget is, or when I say the word, if I get the deer in the headlights look. She's the one that's going to tell them they're spending too much money at Starbucks or whatever that is, so that they can carve out enough money to be able to start the medium and long-term planning that I help with.
Okay, perfect.
And it might be college, it might be retirement, or it might be, hey, I really want to buy a house in 3 years, but I have no idea how I'm going to come up with a down payment. Okay, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because of my background in real estate and the mortgage business, I can go, okay, here's what you might actually qualify for, but let's figure out how out of your monthly budget we can save whatever you need to save in order to make that happen.
Yeah.
So those types of things are what I can help with.
So the financial advising that you do is more focused on kind of that medium and long-term strategic thinking.
Sure.
Okay. And I think that helps clear it up a ton. And so there are resources out there for that immediate need as well, like you talked about. And that's more of the budget stuff?
Yeah, the budget stuff. And I also get people that come to me like overwhelmed with credit card or student loan debt. And while I can help figure out the long-term implications of that, there are other resources that I refer people to that will help them figure out how to dig out of a hole if that's where they are.
Yeah.
Because while I can provide my own personal experience, because I ended up in that situation right out of college, like a lot of people do, I'm not the best person to hold them accountable for their monthly budget or spending plan.
Okay. What can someone expect if they're sitting down with you? I mean, I guess I don't even know compensation wise. Is it billed hourly like a lawyer or
great
some kind
question.
of commission? Yeah.
Not at all. In my case, that's not the case with every advisor, but I always offer a free initial consultation, which can last from an hour to an hour and a half. And that's really just an interview process of us getting to know each other. Can we work together? Because it's just me and my firm, I'm the only advisor. I have a lot of support staff, but it's just me. If I'm going to bring somebody into my practice, we'd better get along pretty well. Because it's sort of like getting married. You don't want to have to get divorced.
Yeah.
So you want to deal with all of that on the front end. And so that first initial consultation is really, can we work together well? Do they understand my investment philosophy and buy into it? And can I help? Can I help with what their need is? And if we determine at the end of that we might be a good fit, we move into the second appointment, which is really about me proposing a solution and then going through all the different ways that I can be compensated. Because as an independent advisor, I can accept a contingency arrangement for somebody that just says, hey, I don't want you to manage my investments, but I want you to make sure I don't do something stupid.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's one option. I can get compensated as a percentage of the assets that I manage, or I can get compensated only on the products and services that they purchase. So it's up to the client.
Yeah. I love it. What kind of clientele do you deal with? I know you talked about entrepreneurs. Is that also a full spectrum from individuals to married couples to entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. Yeah. I kind of a couple of my sweet spots obviously are women because of my past experience with advisors. And that could be single women or women that are in a relationship where they really want to be more plugged into this process. So maybe their significant other has been the one handling the finances, and they're starting to get that nagging feeling in the back of their head that maybe they should learn a little more about this.
Okay.
And sometimes the advisor, if that's the situation, if the spouse or significant other is working with another advisor, they don't always welcome questions from the other spouse that hasn't been plugged into the process up to this point.
Okay.
So I get a lot of women that contact me and say, hey, I don't know if my husband's going to be willing to switch, but I'd like for you to at least take a look and give me a second opinion on what we've got going on. And I'm totally willing to do that.
Okay.
So women in any sort of capacity is a sweet spot for me. And then I also love working with entrepreneurs, whether that's solopreneurs, the real estate, mortgage, those types of people that really are sort of on their own when it comes to retirement.
Yeah.
They don't realize that they have so many options because they're a small business owner that they don't have if they're a W-2 employee.
Right.
So all the way up to large businesses, hundreds of employees, so I just love working with people that are entrepreneurial minded, but that also want to take care of their employees.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think some of those professions, specifically real estate, because that's my background, we see so many agents who in the first place don't realize that they're business owners, right? And they don't and it kind of is a little shocking to some degree, but they don't realize, or even entrepreneurs, I think, struggle a little bit with thinking like a business. And I think the side effect of that is treating themselves and taking money out and setting it aside. And I think there's just such this big inclination to either, especially in the real estate industry, feast and famine and spend the money or try and reinvest it back in the business when really, retirement might be an afterthought or investment might be an afterthought.
Yeah.
And so I think that's huge. What is there any kind of misconceptions about, and I know we can't talk about anything specific, but about finances that you see on a regular basis? Or?
Well, I will say specific to entrepreneurs, you hit one just a minute ago, and that is that, the best investment's always going to be for me to reinvest in my business. While that is a good investment, and I will recommend that, I will sit down with a client and say, okay, here is your disposable income. This is how much of it should be going back into your business. But we also need to have a plan B. And I see too many entrepreneurs that think that when they get to the point that they want to retire, that their business sale will be their retirement.
Okay.
And it is not the case almost in any situation. It is a rare situation where you can sell the business and retire on what you sell the business for.
And so you're talking about building up a company and a brand, or a thing I hear a ton is like, oh, I'm going to build up my book of business, which is almost, I don't think I've ever seen that happen necessarily.
Never happens, because they're investing. If you're, let's say you're a realtor or a mortgage lender or you're a CPA or whatever you are, right? Those clients are investing in you. Yep. Same thing with my practice. The clients that I bring on are investing with Shanna. They're not investing with my company.
Right.
So if I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, I have a contingency plan in place for somebody to step in and service my clients, but they're not invested in that new advisor. Yep. They're invested in me. Same thing with, a lot of professions. So to think that you're going to have this saleable business at the end, unless you've put in place that succession plan well before you want to leave, and you introduce that person and built them into the brand, is just not realistic. So you've got to have that plan B.
And I think that's, again, especially true for those kind of how did you pronounce
Solopreneur.
Solopreneur, because it is usually one individual.
Yeah.
And it's not a system, a brand. And maybe that's the end goal, right? For some of those individuals is, hey, I'm going to build this brand up enough where we have systems in place and we have where that, can be sold. But like you said, 99% of the individuals just simply don't fall into that category.
Yeah, and that may be the end result, but it's so hard when it's just you to focus on working on the business. 100% of your time is spent working in the business.
Yep.
For the the example of real estate agents, for them to take time away from showing and selling houses to actually build the business side, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And if they don't do it, and a lot of them don't, then they end up 70 years old and still selling houses because they don't have anything saved to allow them to be able to pull back.
Yeah. Are you seeing a lot of entrepreneurs here in Phoenix? Are you seeing a lot of these small businesses? I mean, what's that from your perspective? I mean, what's Phoenix like from that perspective? I've heard good things, but at the same time, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Phoenix is a really good environment for small businesses because, we have a really well-trained and a readily available workforce. And still today, we have thousands of people moving into the Phoenix metropolitan area every week and every month. The tough part about it is that we're a metropolitan area, but we're so geographically dispersed.
Yeah.
Especially in the real estate industry, I see some of my clients and friends that are, driving from Gilbert to Goodyear for a listing, or that's in my industry. I can do meetings on Skype via the phone, and so my clients can be anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world. I'm not having to physically show a property.
Right.
So, and interviewing employees, that's another thing. If you're interviewing an employee for a job in Goodyear and they live in Gilbert, that's probably not going to be a long-term employee for you.
Right.
So that's the hard part about our area, is that we sort of get, the East Valley and the West Valley and the central part of Phoenix sort of stay in their own little worlds.
Yep.
Which is not a bad thing necessarily, but we do probably need to branch out a little more.
Yeah, it's one of the things that makes Phoenix interesting, right? Is like you said, we're just so spread out, and it's crazy. And one of the things too that I always thought was funny. I mean, so I'm born and raised here in Phoenix. Is we finally get the light rail system, and it's the only public transportation system that stops at stoplights.
Yeah, it takes longer to get to downtown from Tempe on the light rail than it does to drive.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Exactly. And so I think eventually, as the city starts to grow, I think we're going to start to see, hopefully, some advancements in that area.
Yeah, I hope so too.
It's only positive things, especially as of late, for kind of the business community. And, I think we're starting to see the culture here too, where things are starting to pick up, and it's exciting. And I think that's, like you said, people are still moving here because of the weather.
Oh, for sure.
It's always going to be that place that's kind of growing. So.
Yeah. It's that bodes well for all of those smaller, what I want to call boutique businesses, right? That are just like one person that does their thing really well.
Yep.
They can make a good living here in Phoenix doing it if they can, figure that out. But the hard part is then thinking bigger in terms of down the road.
Right. Scalability, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
What other kind of misconceptions do you get or questions? I mean, I guess that's maybe the other thing is what kind of questions do you get on a regular basis from someone, a potential client? Or
Well, I think the biggest question or misconception about what I do really is that you have to have a lot of money to hire a financial advisor.
Right.
Most people don't realize that there are great investments out there today. You can start with as little as $25 a month. And so I always tell people to just start wherever you are. We can't fix the past, whatever you did or didn't do in the past. We can't change it.
Yep.
And so wherever you are today, it's, let's just start. That's the biggest thing, start. And then 6 months or a year down the road when you're comfortable, we increase it a little bit, or you have a big commission check that comes in. I steal some of it and put it into your account, and it becomes a habit. And forming that habit is the hardest thing for most people. So you don't have to have a ton of money to hire a financial advisor. You just have to have a commitment to want to be able to retire or put the kids through college or whatever that goal is.
Yeah.
You've got to be willing to commit some resources to making that happen.
Absolutely. And so much of finances is kind of, like you said, building that habit and paying yourself first and making sure. That's another big thing that I see a ton is people who get the money and then they don't want to give it up. You know what I mean? And so some of the time just taking advantage of some of those things where, it is just put it aside before you even think about it helps a ton.
Yep.
What kind of relationship do you have with clients? Is it something where you have a client and it's, I hear so much about like a yearly meeting, or is it a monthly phone call? You talked about Skype and having some outside clients. What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So with my clients, we do meet twice a year, and whether it's in person or via the internet, doesn't matter to me as long as we can get together. And those are what I call progress meetings. Those are how are we coming towards the goal that we set for you? Is that, are we getting there? Are we doing what we said that we were going to do, right? And then it really is an open communication line from that perspective. I don't have a schedule per se, but I may call them every couple of months just to check in and let them know of things that might or might not be happening, whether it's the market or with a specific investment that they have in their portfolio. And they're always my door is always open for them to stop by or call or make an appointment and come in if they have additional questions. I get a lot of questions, speaking of real estate, from clients that are like, okay, I'm thinking about buying a house, or I'm thinking about buying a second house. And, what would it look like if I took money out of my investments? Would that be the smartest place to take it from? Or should I do X, Y, or Z? And so, because of my background, we can sit down and go, okay, here are the three options that the lender that you're working with laid out for you. And here is what they were going to cost you today. And here's what they're going to cost you 10 or 20 years from today. Yeah. So, let's look at all these. And so you understand what the implications of them all are going to be. And so I get a lot of those types of questions. Should I buy or lease a car? Those types of things that I don't have a financial stake in, but it will affect the plan that we put together if they make the wrong decision.
Exactly.
So I always try to let my clients know that I can be their, set of eyes and ears. If they're looking at different homeowners insurance or liability insurance, I'm not licensed, or I am licensed, but I don't sell property and casualty insurance. Okay. But I can compare 2 or 3 companies and go, okay, this is the best for you. Go for it. And so those types of things are what I want to be able to help my clients with. And there's no additional cost or anything like that. It's just part of the service I provide. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you talked a little bit about the individual who handles maybe immediate budget planning and stuff. You have a referral network of individuals. I'm guessing like an accountant you might refer someone to and maybe a fiscal person. I mean, what does that team look like?
That's great. I kind of call myself the quarterback of their financial team.
Perfect.
Because I sort of act as the hub. So obviously CPA, if they're doing their own taxes on TurboTax, or they don't have somebody that, especially with a business owner, that they feel like they can really rely on, I will refer, somebody in my network to them that best matches their business and how they like to work and where they are in the valley and all that stuff. Attorneys, if they don't have a business attorney or they don't have a good estate plan, I can refer those types of individuals as well. And so, insurance is another one. If they're using an internet insurance company and they're not properly insured, not having the right insurance in place can ruin anything we do on the financial side.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask those questions to go, okay, you might want to consider X, Y, or Z. And I don't do that, but I can introduce you to somebody that does.
Yeah. It's just such a crucial piece. I mean, I think finances in general, and there's kind of this taboo where people maybe don't feel comfortable talking about it. They don't know how to talk about it. You know what I mean? And so I think having resources is huge. And like you said, so you do have a free consultation that you can set up with individuals.
Yeah.
Well, how would someone get a hold of you if they were...
That's a great question. You can schedule a free consultation with me right on my website. It's heritagefinancialaz.com. So that's one way that you can get in touch with me. I also have contact us on my website, and that comes directly to me. So you can send me an email, send me a question. You can also give me a call at 480-397-1184, and I'm at extension 5. That comes right to me. So I'm happy to answer any questions that I can that way as well. And if it makes sense, we can set something up to meet. And if not, if I'm not the right person for you, I'll refer you to the person that is the right person.
Excellent. And if you give me all that information, I can put that in the description as well.
Perfect.
So as an advisor, someone, so your practice, when you were first starting out, I mean, what were some of the things that you did to kind of grow and meet new people? I mean, I know a ton of entrepreneurs, people in real estate and whatnot, and it's, we met through a connection through the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, absolutely.
So networking, that type of stuff. I mean, what kind of strategies do you use to kind of meet new people? And that kind of thing?
And I think that's so important when you're an entrepreneur or solopreneur, if it's just you especially, because it gets pretty lonely. Running the business. And especially if the only other people you associate with are people that are your competition, it gets really lonely. Right? I see that happen with realtors all the time. It's like the only people they spend time with are the people in their office. And it's like, okay, I get it, but you got to broaden your horizons a little bit, right?
Especially with real estate, because they're all trying to work that same neighborhood.
Right. It's like, oh my gosh. And so I always have sort of subscribed to surround myself with people that are sort of a level above where I want to go.
Okay.
And, that's how I met my current partner in my business. And we met at a networking event 4 years ago. She's a fantastic estate attorney here in Gilbert, Becky Chaluka with Chaluka Law. And when it came time for me to make the move to independent life, it just made sense for us to partner together. We met at a networking event 3.5 years ago and became friends, and then we became clients of each other, and now we're partners.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's really important for those of us that are, out there doing it and making it happen every day to really just get out of the cave once in a while.
Yep.
And I try to schedule a specific day of the week that's my networking day. That's the day that I'm out of my office.
Yeah.
I don't take appointments and I meet people for coffee. I go to events. I do all of that community stuff that I want to do.
Yep.
Because it is hard to keep your focus when you're popping in and out of the office for different events and whatnot. So I try to sort of compartmentalize that a little bit.
Yeah. Kind of batching your schedule and time blocking. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that time blocking is the bane of my existence, but it's so important.
Yep. Yeah. And I think one tip that, maybe I've had really enjoyed is if you need networking opportunities, obviously things like networking events, there's a number of those kind of groups. You can find probably 1 million different happy hours throughout the valley that kind of do that. If that's maybe not your thing, there is more formal networking stuff. Is that kind of what the Chamber of Commerce is?
That is what the Chamber of Commerce is. Yep. Their referral teams are what they call them here in Gilbert, and they're a formal, structured networking group. So, it's only one person in each profession, and we meet every week. And so there's everything from that, or like a Business Network International BNI type of thing, all the way to, hey, let's all go golfing and, have happy hour afterwards. You know? I mean, in the Valley, there are so many networking opportunities.
There really is.
There is no excuse for not getting out of your office.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And I think one aspect is you can look to volunteer.
Totally.
There's a million charities out there who need smart business people.
Yeah.
And the first episode I had on Ryan Corey was St. Vincent de Paul. And
yeah.
his biggest thing was, sometimes charities just need someone who's got financial background or someone who's got a business mind or a marketing background. And so many people think volunteering is like putting on some scrubs and going down to the hospital, which it totally can be.
It can be, yeah.
And that can be rewarding. I've done that. But it can also be showing up to a committee and participating and just sharing a brain power. And
absolutely.
You'd be surprised. There's a lot of smart people that get plugged into those type of things because they want to give back. And so look to different opportunities if you're trying to get your name out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really important. And I always say, networking should be fun.
Yep.
So if you go and you're miserable, stop going.
Right.
Find something that's fun for you, whether it's, a volunteer or a business or whatever. Maybe it's, just networking at your kids' ball games or whatever.
Yeah.
That's still networking.
Yeah.
But you've got to work it. It's not just an afterthought.
Right. And so networking is kind of a multi-pronged approach, right? It's meeting people, and then over time you have to build rapport somehow.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's over a series of those types of events or through several meetings, but a lot of times it's just as simple as like, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee and talk to me about what you do, and I can talk to you about what I do. And if there's opportunities, there's opportunities.
Yeah, and that's how some of my best relationships started. I mean, I have relationships today that I started 10 years ago that just started with, hey, it seems like we have a lot in common. Let's go have a Starbucks or whatever.
Yep.
And then, you're passing business back and forth, and it's pretty sweet.
And I think one thing too, that advice that I was given was, don't hesitate to try and find ways to provide value back to those individuals. And sometimes it is just connecting people, you know what I mean? And some of the best kind of connectors that I've met is just as simple of, hey, you mentioned X, Y, and Z, and, I know Shanna, and I don't know if she can help you out, but I'm going to connect you to, and let's see what happens. And if it works, it works. And sometimes that's all that's needed. And so, how long have you been in the Valley? How long?
11 years.
11 years. Mm-hmm. Like it?
I love it. Never going anywhere else. I love the weather, and I love the fact that we don't have to change our clocks twice a year.
It's always funny talking to people who aren't from Arizona. It's like, yeah, no, we don't do daylight savings time. No, I don't know why, but it's awesome. It's great.
It's totally
I'm not
awesome.
exactly sure how they decided that, but so what made you decide on Arizona?
Well, my best friend from high school moved here right after high school, and so I sort of knew what the weather was like, and it got progressively worse and worse living in the Midwest, dealing with scraping the windows and all of that stuff. And I just knew that I wanted to start my business somewhere that was growing, that was expanding and not contracting. And unfortunately, the Midwest is economically when the nation goes through a downturn, the smaller towns are hit even more than the bigger cities are. So, even though Gilbert really to me feels like a small town, everybody knows everybody else, and we try to help each other out as much as we can. We have 250,000 people. We'll have 300,000 when we're fully built out. Yeah. That's nothing compared to my small town that I grew up in, and so. It made sense for me when I was looking to build a business to move to a state that's business friendly.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about the Midwest. Do they see giant shifts too, even with the weather changes?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It's winter crazy. Comes and people...
Katie bar the doors, nobody's leaving.
Okay.
Especially in the real estate industry in, the Midwest and the upper Midwest where I lived as well. From November until April, if you don't buy a house unless you have to, it's cold.
Yeah. Unless someone's forcing you out.
Right. You have a job transfer or something and you have to buy a house, fine. But it's not like all year round here where we pretty much have a well-rounded market. It's a much different environment.
It's always surprising to me. So, we have obviously our summers, and summers get bad, don't get me wrong, but we don't seem to have like that downtick that a lot of other people seem to, and maybe it's just because people know it in Arizona, they know it's hot, and so they get used to it, or they prep themselves, or I'm not exactly sure what that is.
Right.
But people still go out, and the economy, and maybe it too is just because of the proximity we have to places like Prescott, and then people can hit the beach in 5 hours.
Absolutely.
And they can go up north in an hour and a half, 2 hours. And so I think people tend to forget that there are these other places that have those wild swings, and sometimes it's weather, and sometimes it's the economic downturns.
Yeah.
And
one big employer leaves the city and it's like devastating.
Yeah.
In a smaller community, where here it's like, that makes me sad, but it's not going to ultimately impact me very much.
Right.
Yeah.
So Gilbert in 11 years, what are some of the like the local secrets around here? Any good restaurant spots? What do you recommend?
Well, of course, you could walk out my office on Gilbert Road and run into some of my favorites. Gilbert Road and downtown Gilbert has just gone through a genesis in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
And we're getting ready to add like 5 more restaurants. So it's about to be crazier down here than it already is. I love all the Joe's restaurants. I'm a huge Joe's Barbecue, Liberty Market. All of his restaurants are just phenomenal. And a few weeks ago, I was able to take a behind-the-scenes tour at the Agritopia out there, and that was wild. I mean,
so what is that exactly?
that is where they grow almost all the food that they serve in their restaurants.
Okay.
So it's all literally grown right here in Gilbert.
Wow.
It's wild, and it's super cool to see. So I love those little local restaurants like that.
Yep.
I'm also a huge fan of Zen Burger, because I love a good burger, being from the Midwest, the meat and potatoes girl that I am. So that's pretty awesome. And, there are so many great restaurants out here in Gilbert that it's hard to pick.
Yeah, and that's the thing too that Phoenix, I think, is starting to become known for. I say Phoenix, but the Valley area is, we're getting so lucky with restaurants and kind of the bar scene, restaurant, foodie places, and
even entertainment venues. I mean, people don't realize that there is a theater in downtown Gilbert that does like small local productions, but it's still super cool. And there is the Higley Center for the Performing Arts out here in Gilbert, which is attached to Higley High School, that has bigger productions. And that's all 10, 15 minutes from my office, which is super cool.
Yeah. And Phoenix is set up in such a nice way where, I mean, you can really hit most places in 30, 45 minutes, no matter what. And I was listening to something the other day, and they were talking about the Olympics in maybe 2022. And they were talking about it for LA, and I kept thinking that at some point, I think Phoenix is going to be in the running for something like the Olympics.
That would be super cool. Unfortunately, it'll probably be in the West Valley, which all the good concerts and sporting events are in the West Valley, which is my only bone to pick if anybody from the city of Phoenix is listening.
Well, and one of the things is they were talking about they're needing all these different venues for the different sports. But, even LA, I mean, things are going to be so spread out. They're going to have stuff in Pasadena and stuff because you just need, and I was thinking about it, we've got all the stadiums for spring training and America West Arena and
we
Glendale
could totally make
Stadium.
that happen.
I wouldn't be shocked. This is a prediction. So
are you running for chairman of the Olympics in Phoenix 2022 committee? Is that the deal?
I'll take it on if I have to. Well, Shanna, I appreciate you jumping on, and it was an absolute pleasure. Anything else? Any other parting words, education tips, anything along those lines?
No, I think that, the only thing that I really want to say is that investing shouldn't be scary. It should be fun, and my tagline is that I make money fun, and my clients will tell you they don't know how I do it, but I really do. And so I just invite everybody to call or stop by and chat with me, and over a cup of coffee, I can show you really how it will be fun.
Awesome. You want to give them your website and your phone number again?
Yeah, absolutely. Website is heritagefinancialaz.com, and my phone number is 480-397-1184, and I'm at extension 5.
Thank you so much, Shanna.
Hey, thank you.